Folks, welcome again to the Noble Man Podcast. I am delighted to have back with us Pastor Josh Dickens from Olive Baptist Church in Pensacola, Florida. And it's been a little bit of time since we've done a podcast with Josh, but there's some important news that Josh has, he's a new man now. He's got a different role, and so very exciting. Josh, you guys just had a son, so welcome back, but tell us about how that has gone for the last several weeks.
Oh, it has been incredible. He's 6 weeks old yesterday, and so we've gone through the gauntlet, everything from lack of sleep to just totally in love with him, and then 15 minutes later, just lost our patience. What have we done? And so it's he's a ball of joy, and I keep waiting for him to smile. He has all the doctors are saying he's right on the cusp of being able to smile, and so that'd be the first time he can give something back to us that's not just screaming at us. And so
well, I'm sure he's been giving you lots of gifts just out of the other end.
Yeah, that comes all the time. But but man, it has been it's been fun to watch my wife become a mother. It's been fun to see our family gather and just gather around us and cheer us on and support us so much. And it's been incredible to be a father too. It's a unique season to be a father. There's not a whole lot that's associated with fathering that you do now, but except for just support and love and try to take care of them. And so that's what I'm doing, and it's been fun and sanctifying all at the same time.
Amen. Well, let me ask you this question. So my daughter, I told you this kind of in our pre-conversation, just spent the summer as an intern at a hospital in the mother-infant unit. She's a nursing student, mm-hmm. And man, she's in the best part of the hospital because new life, the babies are coming, the families are excited, and she particularly noticed the joy and the excitement of these new dads, especially the first-time dads. So give us a little bit more depth about how, in a moment, your perspective on life changes when the baby is born, he's there, he's safe, he's healthy, and you get to hold him for the first time. Talk about how that changes your perspective on manhood and your role as a husband and a father.
I do, as far as the day of, I just remember there just being a wash of love and care, and renewed responsibility.
Sure.
For what it means to lead your family. I think there's a season of that whenever you're going through engagement, you get married, and but at the same time, and your wife my wife's very capable to take care of herself,
right?
And so, but holding him for the first time, you really just realize, man, the depth of God's creation, that He's given us this gift. That is incredible. He's given us this gift of this baby boy that's healthy, that's comes out and knows to breathe and knows that he needs to eat, and all of the things that just take place. That and at the very same time doesn't know how to do anything for himself and just receives.
Right.
And so that's I'd say renewed responsibility, renewed love, and that hasn't really gone away in the last 6 weeks.
Yeah, and it's not going to. I was actually at a coffee shop this morning reading my Bible, doing some devotional time, and actually was weeping. And another pastor came in, and I was weeping over the fact I read Psalm 134 this morning, and it's got the phrase "bless God" in it. And my youngest son just got married at the end of May, and I had never heard the song "Bless God." And so it was amazing, but I was just thinking about what a gift it was at their wedding to be worshiping and sing that song, Bless God. And so there are moments like this that call us to worship, don't they? They just remind us that God, in His grace, general revelation, to see a baby that breathes and is, he's functioning. He's a human being. He was formed in his mother's womb that whole time, but then you get to hold him. So it's a good reminder of your love for your son reminds us, or all of our love for our kids as fathers reminds us of the Father's love for us. And so I constantly think about how God looks at me when I look at my kids. So has that occurred to you? Do you think about that much at all, that God calls himself Father and then gives us the experience of being a father so that in some ways we relate to him?
Yeah, we can relate to him and then also see whenever I fall short, how he doesn't, and how it continually, he's just the better father. And so it's called me to be, in many ways, more patient, quicker to get up at that 3:30 a.m. hour, and at least I hope so. And so, man, it helps me relate to God and feel the love of the Father. But for me, it's also called me to be more, than what I naturally would be.
There is so much there, and I think that's an aspect of spiritual formation that we need to guide men to sit still long enough to process sometimes.
That's a good word,
because I think about the fact, when I would get frustrated with my sons and want them to do things in a way that was good for them, but they didn't like it at the time. I knew what was best for them sometimes. And then I would have to think, oh, yeah, God, you get a little frustrated with me probably when I want to do things my way, but you know that there's a better way, because the Father, you as the omniscient Father, see all things, and you're working all things together for good for those who love you and are called according to your purposes. And so you know what's best for me, but I think I know what's best for me. And boy, there's a whole fathering lesson right there.
Oh, yeah.
And a lesson of what it means to be a follower, a father and a follower. So
true.
Yeah,
true.
It's part of the interesting adventure. Now, you said that your in-laws are there for a season and that you're getting some rest. They're helping with some nighttime duties. And so that's another aspect of this, that you get to see the value of family. And not everyone has that gift, but it's another piece of God's blessing to us when we as families work together to care for the generation. So speak to that for just a moment.
Yeah. And I live in the same town as my parents, and so they've been able to be in and out. And but Jess's parents both live in Georgia, and so they've been able to come visit. And these visits have just been a godsend. I mean, so like this past week, both Jess and I are being able to get sleep because they're taking him throughout the night. And I mean, yeah, it's been a huge blessing. Like you say, not everybody has that, and but our situation, we've just been so blessed to have family that's been come alongside us, been here to help us, and also watch their title change too.
Yes,
and see.
Is this the first grandchild for
either of them? This is the first grandchild on both sides, and so he's the first grandchild for both sides. So. We're gonna fight him being spoiled all the way through, and but it's been so fun to see, and then just experience the love from our parents, to care for us in this new way. It's been fun.
Absolutely. Well, I tell folks, I mean, I even told that pastor this morning that I was speaking to that our oldest son is the only one of our kids who has children right now, And I love being a grandfather. That's a wonderful gift. Like you said, it's a new title, new responsibility. But my favorite part of being a grandfather is not necessarily the grandchildren, spending time with them. I mean, I love that, and it's rewarding. But my favorite part is watching my son be a dad. And so I'm sure that your father and your father-in-law and your mother and mother-in-law are delight in watching you and Jess become mom and dad. Because that's a fun aspect of this whole thing, to see God's plan working out in your family here to multiply and fill the earth and subdue it. So that's awesome. Well, tell me. So you've jumped back in. As a matter of fact, I mentioned earlier, I saw on Facebook you were speaking to men, I guess, at a men's dinner not too long ago. So
men's breakfast.
Yeah, so you're back in the saddle, investing in men. So was that your first time speaking to the group at that breakfast again?
Since he's been born, yeah. And so that's our first Tuesday breakfast every month. which has just become this rallying cry for men in our church.
Yeah.
It's been so good, and so I make the schedule for
Sure.
speakers, and so I put myself the month after he'd be born, and somewhat foolishly, and also knowing, hey, you're going to need to get back in the saddle at some point, and so
Right.
it forced me to kind of wake back up, and I hope it made sense at the end of the day. But we had a great time together. So
That's awesome. Well, I'm curious, did you have a specific topic that you were assigned, or did you get to bring, did you get to choose your message topic for that event?
yeah, so the three values of our men's ministry are build your home, make disciples,
Okay.
and reach a city. And so we take these those three values and we rotate them throughout those 3 months. So last month was make disciples, and so we looked at Deuteronomy 6, and talked about men who are going to raise up the next generation and invest in the next generation. They need to commit their time. They need to value the moments that they have, and those moments that God gives you. Make the most of them, and then create milestones, and create what we said. Make a reminder that of God's faithfulness in your life, and that your life would carry on the legacy of your family, or would carry on the legacy of Christ into your family's life to the next generation. And so that's kind of what we highlighted last month. This upcoming month, we're talking about reaching your city, and so we're bringing our guy in, college pastor in. He's going to talk about how to punch darkness in the face. But
Okay.
so yeah, but we just that every month it's just a topic, that one of those topics highlighted in a unique way. And it's been super fruitful.
That's awesome. I'll make sure that we get those three key ideas, the kind of like the pillars, the core values for your men's ministry, and we put those in the notes. So as a new dad, preaching on Deuteronomy 6, thinking about this, what it looks like to disciple well, because listen, guys, if you're listening to this, pastors thinking about this, we talk about discipleship all the time, but our first ministry responsibility is in our own homes. Whether you're a pastor or whether you're a guy sitting in the pew in the church, you have a responsibility to lead and teach and train your own family and to disciple them, to evangelize your own family, but also to disciple your own family. And so, Josh, just for a couple of moments, and I know I'm getting you to pull back things, but as a new dad, what are you thinking about? I mean, your son, what's his name?
Hezekiah.
Hezekiah is only 6 weeks old, but your wheels are already turning, I'm sure, and thinking about these are examples I've seen of fathers and families where there is purposeful intent to disciple children, to raise them up in the fear and admonition of the Lord. So what are you already thinking about that Josh and Jess will put into motion in the coming years, but even now for Hezekiah?
Yeah, so we've talked a little bit about this. I'll start with the first concrete thing we did. We bought a really nice leather-bound Bible. I went to found this company that does really nice leather, and got a Bible from them. And we put his name on the front of it, and this is my Bible for the year. And so I'm going to just take notes, underline, I want to treat this as my Bible. I've actually preached out of this at the men's breakfast. And at the end of the year, for his first birthday, this will be something that we just give him. Now, he won't be able to take it, but this will be something that we give him so that he can always have his notes from his mother and his father in his Bible as his very first Bible. And so that's something that we did for this first year, especially as he's just early on. But we're praying over him and wanting to read scripture out loud around him. Those are things that actually Dr. Chuck Lawless at Southeastern, want to give him a shout out, he encouraged me to do. And so that's been stuff that we've been doing. But we also just talk about, man, we want to be parents that first and foremost, our home is a place of security and a place where he feels the love, but the love from the Father, the love from
Right.
the love from God, and that he sees that in our marriage, a marriage that exemplifies and glorifies God. But we also want to be committed to the church,
Right.
and have him grow up in church and be in community. And then the final thing that we've talked a lot about moving forward is that we want him to be, impart to him a strong value towards global missions, and realizing that it's kind of seeing the extent of the global church. And so one of the ways that we've talked about doing that is we just want to not do family vacations without going. If we're going to travel, let's go see a missionary that we know.
Yeah.
And because of our background through seminary and through some other opportunities, we happen to just know various people that are all over the globe. So, and let's not go to a place that doesn't have somebody that we know and go enjoy ourselves, but let's go encourage them. And
Amen.
And so that's something that we'll do as he gets a little bit older. If it feels like right now we're never going to travel again, but that'll come to pass. And so whenever he gets a little bit older, we'll start enacting that. But those are the things that we've talked about that we want to put into place for him. And so
I love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I'm sure we'll have more conversations about that. I just love the fact that you're already thinking about being intentional in some very significant ways that get to the core of who you are, because I think that's part of what not everybody has to do the same thing to answer that question, but we all have to have some sort of plan that fits our scenario. You know, your Bible thing, I'll tell you a quick story about what I've done with our kids. I did not do that. Stacy and I did not do the Bible thing in their first year of life, but before our kids left to go to college, I took a Bible and read it and marked it up in that year before they left and sent that with them. I had a manhood ceremony for each of the boys and gave them a Bible that I had been reading and writing in and writing notes to them in the year before they left to go to college, university, whatever. And I see my sons with those Bibles. I mean, that became a cherished, prized possession for them. Yeah. And so, guys, if you can do that at some point in their lives, to take a Bible and mark it up and even write notes to them, it's a huge gift. So I know some of you may be listening to this and you're thinking, well, I didn't do that. Man, that's a great idea. I wish I'd done it. Well, do it now.
Yeah,
do it whenever you can. Yeah. And I'll hit one more thing in this. You talked about making maybe milestones or memories and setting markers in their lives. And there's the term for that in the Bible is an Ebenezer, setting an Ebenezer stone, a memory stone. And so, my goodness, to have in your mind with your wife, guys, this idea that we're going to create faith-marking moments and milestones and memories in the lives of our children. We're going to mark those with celebration and with some sort of memorial stone. You don't have to, build a rock altar in your backyard to accomplish that. You can do something else, but creating those spiritual memories for your kids is huge.
Yeah.
And then I'll say one other thing. We kind of had a similar mindset to introduce our kids to the world. And that's wonderful, but I'm going to tell you, it grips your heart when they go. And there is something wonderful and challenging about putting your kid on a plane to go halfway around the world when they can go by themselves because you've prayerfully and intentionally helped them develop a heart for the nations. When they go to the nations and that prayer, God answers those prayers. It's a whole new world of faith development for parents, but it's a glorious road to walk. So that's awesome.
Oh yeah, and my parents just faced that with exactly what you're saying. Their youngest both went overseas to Moldova this summer, and so overnight they went from having 2 in the house to empty nesters. And you are 100% right. It's encouraging. It's also challenging.
Man, I remember watching our son. He was going to intercept some missionaries. He was going to stay with some missionaries in South Asia, and he was traveling by himself for the first leg of the journey. And so for us to go to Dulles Airport and watch him walk away and we're not going to see him again for a couple of months. That was in the summertime. He was only 17, and we were sending him off to the nations. But it's prayers answered for sure, but more prayers going up at the same time. So
Yeah.
it's something. Well, we could talk a bunch about the fathering thing, and we'll get back to more of that as we continue with this series. But I wanted to lean into one of the books that you had mentioned that you ordered and started reading after we had our initial conversation, and that's a book called Why Men Hate Going to Church. And this came out early, right before I launched Noble Warriors. As a matter of fact, here's one of the original copies. Let's see if I can hold this correctly, of Why Men Hate Going to Church. David Murrow, the author of this book, has become a friend of mine and Noble Warriors, and just really appreciate the insights that he shared and the way that's opened so many leaders' eyes to the church. So tell me what you saw and understood as you read this book and how it impacted your perspective on the church as a young pastor and a young man.
Yeah, I think, and he kind of divides up the book into the three major parts.
Yeah.
I have the second edition here.
Yeah, I've got one of those here too, so I got it with me. Yeah,
because he mentioned how the first edition is slightly different. But the three major parts, the first one's just identifying the problem, and then the second one's much more of just an autopsy of, okay, here's where we're at today, and how we've gotten there. Kind of almost a topical piece, and then the last piece is actual solutions. So it's a pretty easy read in that regard. And I think my favorite part was just in part one, where he talks about, man, your system is perfectly designed to get the results that it's getting. And he's quoting someone, read that quote a number of times. But it's really just speaking to, man, our churches, the situation inside of our churches is exactly producing what we're putting in. And primarily talking about when it comes to the crisis of manhood inside of our churches. And so it's important, I think, he talks about it, but even it's not an anti-woman's book as much as it's just this is just a major gap that for some reason we haven't dove into fixing. And what I began to think through as I've read this is all of the small churches that have played parts in my life, and the absence of strong male leadership, mostly to be the case in those churches. And then the fruitful churches that I've been a part of, how male leadership came to the fore and carried the church forward there in that church, including the one I serve at today. How common it was to see, man, when you take male leadership out of the picture, when you take godly men out of the picture, what quickly happens, and then have male leadership step up and men who are called by God step in and stand in that gap, what God can do. And so that's something that I think it's evident throughout this book. He highlights both healthy churches in this regard and unhealthy churches. But it's important not just to understand where the church has gotten to, church capital C, but how our church has gotten to the place that we're at. And I think this book actually helps begin to identify some of those key patterns that take place across churches that may have taken place inside your church.
Well, let's be specific, and if it's okay with you, we'll just focus on this first part of where are the men, and then maybe next time we'll dive into the next two sections of the book and talk about some deeper details there. But let's get specific. What are some observations that you've made as you look back and consider the churches that you've been in, and think about, oh yeah, I see that was part of what David is identifying here. And I'll just also say, by way of confession, and this may apply to you as well, I've been in church most of my life. And so I am very well acclimated to what church feels like, looks like. And there are some of these elements that he points out that I didn't notice until he pointed them out. And so this is one of the interesting challenges that for those of us who've been in the church for a long time, we can just become accustomed to, well, that's the way it is. But for a guy on the outside who's coming in, a guy who's first time in the church, he's coming into this situation and he notices things differently
Yes.
than the guy who's been in the church forever. So talk about some of the specifics that caught your attention in this.
There's a line pretty early in the book, and he talks about that for the most part, Western men are not hostile to Christianity. They're just ambivalent. And he gives this outline of these various characters that it's a Sunday morning. They're kind of fictitious, but some are going to the bar, some are staying inside their garage on Sunday morning, some are getting ready for a motorcycle ride, but all three have wives that have gone to church, that have taken the kids, and then these guys just have no intention of ever going, except for Mother's Day, Christmas, or Easter. And just showing the burden that he has, but I think the burden that most of our listeners on this podcast would have to reach that guy. That's the guy. We at Olive, we call him the 35-year-old man in Pensacola, Florida, who's not engaged in church, who believes in God ambivalently, but not in any kind of concrete pray every day, in no relationship. He's the big man upstairs.
Right. So let's stop there. Is that guy saved?
No.
That's an interesting question, that because there are a lot of those guys who think, well, I know the Lord. I believe that the Lord exists, but believing that he exists, Satan believes he exists. But that guy often thinks he's got something going on spiritually, but is lost, right?
Yes.
So that's a challenge for us.
And also realizing that that's the missional component of this piece. You can't expect him to walk through our doors and to take everything at face value whenever he's not even a believer yet. And that's part of what David begins to talk about in the book. Is it's everything from systems and structures inside your church, but it's also just the pastel colors that you continually use, and or the cursive font, and the fact that flowers are everywhere, and it's these little changes that can make your church more approachable to men. That, like what you're saying, man, we just don't see these things. I think at an aesthetic level, a lot of churches could do a lot better just in that regard, because they've never asked the question. They've never asked the question, man, what does it actually look like for a unsaved single man to walk in here, and is he comfortable? And those are things that David gets to in the book that are very helpful. And of course, not knowing every church's situation, but I think flowers are something to be wary of. Something I see that I've fought against in our church is this obsession with cursive font on church invitations, and then of course pastel colors are something that a lot of churches will use that just aren't going to be appealing to most men. And it's not to say it never works for them, but it's just not going to appeal to them.
Well, it's not going to appeal to the broad cross-section of men in our culture who need to know Jesus. And so now, does that mean that we have to have, taxidermy deer heads and on the walls and chain mail hanging everywhere? And I mean, we don't have to go to that extreme, because that can be another extreme that excludes some guys. But we can have a masculine feel to the church that's inviting to men and not repulsive to women. But if it feels too feminine, then a guy's going to often lean away from that or be cautious at the very minimum. Is that fair?
That's fair. Yeah. And something.
So what else? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, something he didn't mention it explicitly, and I just think it's just because the third edition's not out. But the role of social media plays a huge role in this too, if you're going to reach young. And how your church presents itself socially on the internet is going to have a huge impact. And something that we've struggled with, begin thinking, man, if we're trying to reach a certain demographic, we've got to use the avenues that they use missionally. And so right now, what we've identified as TikTok and Instagram, we've got to be on those platforms in some meaningful capacity if we're going to say that we're reaching 35-year-old men, because that's where they are.
Yeah.
And so, and it just demographically right now speaking, that just means Facebook takes a back seat for that particular purpose. Now you give it 15 minutes and it might be completely reversed. It's just the world we live in. But that's for right now. That's the conversation we're having.
Yeah. Well, and so there are some people who would say, well, wow, those are the devil's playgrounds, the social media. And we keep telling guys you need to stay away from social media. You need to be cautious there. And yet we must go there to engage the guys because that's where they are. There is a tension there that we have to work with, isn't there?
It's a huge tension there. And I think that's something that each pastor and ministry team has to wrestle with in some capacity. If you just go all in, that's clearly wrong.
Right.
And I think to just responsibly in our world today, just to completely ignore it, is also just something that's just not wise.
Right.
And so we have to continue to live in that tension space while presenting the gospel in a winsome way. In the avenues that God's given us. I think back to a mentor of mine once said, if the Apostle Paul were alive today, I think he'd be on social media. And that kind of has framed it in a different light for me. He didn't say he'd wholesale accept it. He didn't say that he'd, be on it all the time, but he would be on social media. And that's a completely one person's opinion that somebody may disagree with, but I happen to agree with it and think, man, we need to get the gospel out to as many people as we can, to as many avenues as we can.
Well, so Paul was clearly engaging and sparring with thought leaders of the day over what was going on in those times. And so there is
Very much so, yeah.
a responsibility for us to live in that area.
Space.
Yes, and to do it with excellence, with a redemptive mindset. And so, I appreciate so much that you bring up the social media environment, because in order to reach some in our population that we want to target, we have to have some strategy there. Now, this is a little bit convicting for me, quite honestly, because I'm an older guy and I think more about Facebook, and I keep being reminded that that's for old people. And so the younger generations have moved then more progressively to Instagram and now to TikTok and some other venues. For me, part of what I think about as a ministry leader is every one of those is like another pet that I buy that I have to keep feeding all the time and managing and keeping up with. But there's probably someone on your team that would be willing to do that if you can give them the resources, the information, give them what they need to keep feeding that Instagram pet or that TikTok pet, to feed it redemptive assets that can be pushed out. Mm-hmm. Is that a fair way for someone to look at that resource? Oh,
I think so. Yeah. No, it's part of also handing off the ministry, equipping the saints for the work of the ministry. As we begin to think through, and I think as we move into more of this social media age, we're going to continue to see social media viewed as the mission opportunity that it can be. Just somebody who is equipped and with the knowledge and the know-how and the desire. Because I'll be honest, I don't have the desire to do it. And so I love to enter into the discussions with our team. But at the end of the day, I don't want to post 3 times a week. That just sounds exhausting. So I want to be a part of it and hand it to somebody and say, hey, can you run with this? And so that's what we're doing. And I guarantee you, man, as our pastor ministry leaders, look for that guy. You're asking commitment from him, which is going to call him into more.
Sure.
And so that right there is good for him, but also good for your church.
Amen.
And so, I think you do not do this alone.
No, you don't do it alone, and you look for the guy who might not be in the inner circle, but has capacity, passion, opportunity, desire. This guy might become part of your leadership team, and you would not have picked him earlier. And I think what we have to do is ask God to help us have eyes to see those guys who may be on the periphery, that if we invite them in and give them an assignment, all of a sudden their understanding of kingdom value and the Great Commission and everything begins to improve, and these guys become more valuable to the kingdom. So they become kingdom assets. And so we put them to work. Now, we spent a lot of time talking about fatherhood and all, so I'm gonna toss one more thing out for us to talk about, and then we'll go ahead and shut this down and wait till next time. But I love it when Murrow talks about the fact that women can do masculine, but men can't do feminine. And so I don't know if you got to that part in the book, but he often speaks to the fact that a woman can go into a Home Depot and get excited about working with tools, doing those things, putting a tool belt on, and we're not offended by that. We're not surprised by that. It's not awkward. But when a guy walks in with a frilly apron on, first of all, most guys aren't going to do that. And then when we see that, we think this is a little bit unique. So, what are your thoughts about how we create a masculine context that's attractive to men but not repulsive to women? Do you sense that they would lean out as you make some of these? If you take the pastel colors and the flowers away, or start to minimize those, are the women going to stop saying yes to coming to church?
No, I don't think so. And I think also that there has to be a healthy discussion around creating healthy women's spaces.
Yes.
And not that you always divide the two, because that's not what we want to do at all. But women need spaces to have these things and to do these things, and that's a healthy thing. But I just think that Murrow is pushing back against a culture that's pretty much just said, okay, it's been wholesale this way for too long. And so I don't think that's going to prevent the women from participating at all. And I think with men, you just got to be intentional about how do they relate to one another. And he begins to talk through some of the solutions, but I think just being aware that guys would prefer to be either doing a task together or be side by side. Guys are not going to talk one-on-one, especially about the deeper things to life. They need to be side by side. Lots of our churches, we have round tables, these round table discussions. Those are just more conducive to men than I think chairs in rows are. And knowing that, hey, if we can create environments where guys can be comfortable, that will produce discipleship. That's it's not so that we have aesthetically pleasing environments that look like an outdoor store, but so if we can create them to be comfortable environments, this will produce discipleship down the road. The discipleship is the key. That's the goal. So how can we get that to the end of it?
We've got to get the guys in so that we can start having the conversations and finding out what their pain points are, so that we can then speak to their pain points, because we have the answer to the pain that men are feeling, whatever that is. But we're not even inviting them into the opportunity in a meaningful way in many cases.
Well, and David has this incredibly helpful list illustration example really early in the book, but he just lists out these characteristics. And if you look at list A, you look at list B, and you say which one is most characteristic of Jesus. Clearly, the typical run-of-the-mill answer would be list B. Well, the list is pulled from a secular book of talking about the difference between men and women. And I think you can almost reverse engineer that list and just say, okay, how can our churches be more of not list A centric, because we want to be Bible centric, but take this list A and just realize, okay, this is what men are most like. How do we incorporate these into ministry and into everyday life?
Amen. Well, this is good stuff. I do think of one more question I've got to ask you. I could go on and on, but I've been talking recently with more and more pastors who are seeing an influx of young men coming into the church. And so, we're hearing secular and Christian research telling us that young men are interested in spiritual things, and they're willing to come to the local church and ask questions and begin to explore, what could Christianity provide for me? What could I learn here? So at Olive there in Pensacola, I mean, you guys are near Navy base. Are you seeing young men come to the church looking for an opportunity to connect and find some answers? What's your finger on the pulse for that look like?
Yes. It's been incredible this past, I'd say really the last 18 months. We've seen an uptick in baptism in general, but especially baptism in guys under 25 years old, which has just been so sweet. And so that has been, so we have one guy, he was a philosophy major in the nearby university. And we actually helped him move in when he was a freshman and invited him to church. He said no. And that was kind of the end of the discussion there. Well, we didn't know it. He went on 4 years of searching, came to our college night, gave his heart to Christ. And And so you fast forward, I'm walking him up to the baptismal, and I'm telling him, man, we're so excited for you. And pretty much everybody gets baptized. I just say, hey, thank you for honoring us with joining our church family, get baptized here. We're gonna love you. And he stops me halfway through my spiel, and he goes, no, you don't understand. This church has given me everything. And at 22 years old, he graduates a week later, and he was going to move back home because he didn't have anything. And he actually took a job as a janitor at church so he could continue to be at Olive while he looks for other employment in Pensacola, because he just is convinced God has something for him here. And he's just one example of a few that we've had that the Lord has just very graciously just shown that he is still at work in the lives of young men. And I think we just got to be faithful to share, be bold.
Yes.
And also call them into more. The gospel is it's an invitation, and it is easy to, and if you just believe on the name of the Lord, you will be saved. But also but he's asking for your life, and he's demanding everything from you. That's what a young man is looking for. We're seeing young men that are purposeless, that are driven to purpose. And thankfully they're finding that in the church. And I think they can find that in churches all across the country as we present that purpose. But we've got to be very clear that the expectations up front are a high bar. Otherwise they'll seek it elsewhere.
But I think you're exactly right, this high bar. And I believe that's why the disciples left everything to follow Jesus, because he was inviting them to be commissioned into something that was hard and challenging and demanding. It was an adventure. And there is no greater adventure than following Jesus into the commission of the Great Commission. And so, man, I'm excited to hear about this young philosophy major. I'll just put in a plug here. Send him to Southeastern and get him the theology degree. And let's put this guy to work in the kingdom, coming out of that secular mindset, having explored a lot of things. That's just, what a cool story. Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that, Josh.
Yeah.
Love it. Thanks for pastoring well with a heart for men as a young pastor. That's such a blessing, and I'm delighting in this conversation. So I hope you get plenty of sleep here as Hezekiah continues to grow and things go well there.
We're trying. So I thank you. Thank you so much for having me, and I always enjoy these conversations. These are great. So.
It's a blessing to me. Well, thank you so much, brother. Folks, this is our third in this series with Josh Dickens, pastor at, pastor at Olive Baptist Church in Pensacola, Florida. And part of his responsibility is discipling men, leading men's ministry there. So I'm just thankful that a young guy has this assignment and is taking it so seriously. So thank you, brother. God bless you. And folks, join us. We're going to interview another pastor for our next episode of the Men's Noble Man podcast. So look forward to seeing you then. God bless you. Bye-bye.